Hello everybody, Toby Talks number 8, live from Shanghai. Nice and early in the morning, but luckily I'm completely screwed up on my body clock, so I'm nice and awake, and was awake for the announcement that came out 2 hours ago from Valve. A new change up to the way our Pro Circuit is going to be happening, the DPC. A lot of changes to come through. I'm going to go through these for the main critical points, which are in it, which is basically all of it. It's not that complicated for what they're changing. So let's actually go straight into it. So the first thing which is going to be changing is the roster locks. There are no more roster locks until you actually reach the International 2019. Oh yeah, by the way, they said there's an International 2019, so it's happening. Small announcement slipped inside of that, just in case you were concerned it wouldn't happen again. So changes. The way this happens now, a player leaves a team and 20% of the points are now going to be deducted from their DPC. So it allows for more flexibility. It stops a lot of this build-up of tension to a roster change point. So I like that change because the pressure gets taken away from the teams and we stop having these teams which are imploding, and it also stops players from getting completely fucked over just before the International comes up, where potentially they can still get into a team which is qualifying for the International. So small things like this which I kind of like that are changing. Ownership is the other thing that they added into this. So teams now have the points. It's no longer the players, it's the teams that have the points. It gives a little bit more power to the organizations, but they look like they're trying to balance it out in both ways. So you give more power to organizations, but the organizations cannot have ownership in multiple teams. Now, this means that China, I think, is actually probably be affected by this more than the Western scenes, for example. Maybe depending on like how much is actually owned by which Russian company as well. Maybe the CIS will be also affected. But teams like VG Gaming, for example, there'll be question marks added like who actually owns what. Because now you've got a lot of VGJ teams out there who are being really successful. Thunderstorm. You've got VG Gaming itself, who's also successful. And according to what Valve has published, they cannot actually all attend the International if they're under the same ownership. So things will be worked out on this front. And it's not just the team organizers, it's also the players who are responsible for themselves. And a lot of players actually get shares in teams when they join up into the team. Best situation may even be the one who founded one of the teams, Fly, who's recently moved to Evil Geniuses, who probably still owns shares in OG itself, as well as maybe gain shares of Evil Geniuses when he joined the team. So some things legally will need to be sorted out, but at least the players know about this before the International's coming, and this isn't a strange thing to them. The International also states already in its terms and conditions for the players that they cannot own any stakes in other teams. This is a very simple thing to stop people from cheating or throwing and then for their own financial gain in another team. So it does make a lot of sense. No surprise that it's now actually being put in public writing for people to look at a little bit more closely. Other things which are changing, spacing for minors and majors. A lot of us have been begging, wanting this for a very long time. So thank God it's actually here. Third parties running minors and majors is all being spaced out, including the qualifiers. So if the team wants, they can play in every single qualifier. Of course, if they can get into it, they can play in everything. And there's no overlap, there's no heavy scheduling problems. This is what needed to happen a long time ago. Now, I have a couple of concerns about this, but I'm going to get to them a little bit later in this video. Let's go through the other points that were also done. No invites now to any of the minors and majors. You have to go through the qualifiers. If you win the minor, you actually get a spot in the major itself, was something they added, which I wish I could actually, I can't dig it up and say, hey, here's my idea, which I said before, but that was something I was actually hoping for a long time ago when the majors and minors system was actually announced, that the minors and majors would be connected in such a way. But it always was shut down mainly because no third party wants to be a qualifier for someone else's tournament, especially if there's like a little bit of bad blood, say, hey, ESL and PGL. ESL becomes a qualifier for PGL. Do you really want this to happen? Probably not if you're an organizer. Are you helping someone else? MLG thrown back in the mix in back in the day. So I can understand why there's a little bit of adversity to it, but now it's part of Valve. They said this is the way it's going to be, so that's great. So yeah, no invites, no direct invites, no more drama on that front. Hey, why is Na'Vi attending this event when, what did they do? They placed third at another event. Now we can justify bringing in Dendi for marketing purposes to an event. So happy with that. There is a huge change where all teams get points. Very, very needed change, mainly because if you look at all the DPC points right now, not that many teams actually have points. And it makes a real problem coming into the qualifiers because Valve said the points would actually influence the direct invites to the qualifiers. And they're sitting there realizing that every team has also changed. Another reason why the roster lock change is coming in, because every team has changed their roster so much that they're actually disqualified from being directly invited into the qualifiers, making an absolute clusterfuck of teams in the open qualifiers all having to play best of ones to actually get to the best of three end of the open qualifiers. And anything can happen there. And a lot of the teams which you think like, oh man, they should really make it through qualifiers, at least through the open qualifiers, may not, because one best of one can change everything. The ESL format in Birmingham taught us that one when, EG and Liquid into elimination games after best of ones. Yeah, not exactly the greatest reason why best of threes is regarded as competitive for Dota. So last thing is the minors and majors. Now, obviously, with the spacing, there's going to be a heavy reduction in the minors and majors. So we had 13 majors, or 12 majors, one super major, which I'm at right now, and 9 minors in our current DPC year. The next one will have 5 minors and 5 majors. Now, this is where I can transition into my points of thought. So, talked about all the changes which are there, a couple of side thoughts on this, but the change with the reduction in minors and majors is actually a huge reduction. Now, if we assume that minors and majors will stick to what they are for the prize money, which is 300,000 and 1 million, then, which I'm not going to lock that in, and Valve hasn't locked that in either, and I think after they realize this number, they probably will change it anyway and make the majors and minors worth a little bit more. And hopefully they're not going to make the organizers pay for that. So with the reduction of these tournaments, you have to think there's $8.5 million being removed from majors, and it's $1.2 million being removed from minors. Now, that's $9.7 million that the players cannot have a chance to win. Obviously, most of it was taken by VP this DPC, but it's still $9.7 million that Valve will not have to fork out. Technically, it's less than that for Valve because it's like 50-50. So let's just say it's a cool $5 million. The tournament organizers as well as Valve will not have to pay. Where does that money then go? Why are they taking this away? Obviously, it's for more spacing. So this is the good point. The spacing allows for the qualifiers to actually be more interesting now. You can have a lot more, because no direct invites, teams actually have to go through the main qualifiers to get there. Format is going to be a huge thing that Valve needs to lock down. The devil is always in the details. So Valve need to ensure that the teams that qualify for the main event really deserve to be there. And you need this to happen as well because the organizers need to have these brands there to attract viewership, to attract both online as well as at LAN. This is another reason why I make the joke about Dendi being brought in for and Na'Vi being directly invited, but it's for a very solid reason. A lot of people turn up to these events just so they can get a glimpse of Dendi. So it's important for third parties to still have these heavy brands in there, which then makes their brand better as well. So I'm hoping Valve is going to actually make a format. I know there was a lot of discussions. I know there was... I don't know the details of it all. All I know is I saw a bunch of managers going off for a meeting in Birmingham about the format of tournaments and trying to make it more competitive because there obviously were a lot of problems for a lot of teams during Birmingham, which kind of escalated there. But it wasn't just Birmingham, it's happened before this as well. Not everyone can book out 2 weeks of their time to do like a tournament like we have here at the Super Major, which is a lot more balanced, even if the groups make life a little bit more difficult because you put 4 versus 4 and then it's you have 8 teams going down potentially just because of a bad matchup. Like imagine if you had Liquid, VP as well as Team Secret all in the same group and then you've got one poor little other team in there. It's like, oh, I have no chance, I'm in the lower bracket instantly. So these are the type of things that you want to try and avoid, but I'm hoping the Valve come through and actually make a proper system for both the qualifiers as well as for the main event, and they make this a standardized system across the board. It also does allow for more interesting storylines to start to arise. So the system needs to ensure that teams actually gain exposure Now, there are a lot of options for teams to actually qualify into the qualifiers themselves, because every qualifier still needs to have an open qualifier, and it still needs to be for all regions. So no matter what happens, you still get a global representation at every minor as well as major. Now, it's on the organizers to now step up. Like, you've now been given the window. There's no longer the complaint that, oh, there's 3 qualifiers all being run at the same time, we're all just short on staff, I can't make an event because if I do an event for a qualifier, there's a minor being run right now and people just aren't interested. That's not the case anymore. Like, this is now adding more pressure, and I'm hoping the community add this pressure and don't just accept subpar coverage of tournaments anymore. Having 2 guys sitting in a studio just talking about something and being the only form of coverage is something that happened back when Join Dota was still properly relevant. Now I did that. I sat in a room, and this was the pinnacle of coverage. There's even an article that was written about it where ESL put all this production value into Germany, and I'm sitting there with just a webcam and a laptop, and I was gaining more viewership and more positive reactions from a community because of my coverage. Now, this can't really sustain anymore. Now, we obviously accept things like this because BSJ's coverage, Grant's coverage, this is something which is really easy to consume for a lot of people. And this is great, but you need to elevate it now when the minors and majors are so spaced out. You can't expect someone to look at our scene and say, hey, this scene is really quality. It's really, really good. Like, even when StarCraft 2 was dying, and people were saying, oh man, like StarCraft 2, man, dead game. But you tune into the broadcast and everything was professional. Everything was looking really, really good. There was storylines, there was video footage, there was always memes, there was social media, there was content that was being created around this stuff. And I believe a lot of the qualifiers, like the only ones who really did their qualifiers well was Dream League, actually. They created a fan. Actually, it was a fair. It was a state fair. That's what ended up happening with Dream League. And a lot of the other qualifiers just didn't do the same type of thing. Yes, they started spending more money. They were flying in multiple casters so they could actually cast live, which is a great improvement. But you need to go beyond that. Like, especially with the Valve video policy still being in play, people like Bulldog, people who aren't invited to the majors and the minors for both the qualifier coverage as well as the main event will be doing things on their own stream. So the official stream needs to be able to step up and actually be more than what everyone else is, especially when there's more pressure. You have an open time slot to do your coverage. No one else will be competing with you during this time. It's the dream for most organizers. So I put it out on my Twitter as well. I want to throw down a challenge to all the organizers to actually do proper coverage for their qualifiers leading into the main event. Don't just have 2 guys sitting in a shitty little studio and we cut to music and a splash screen that says Team A versus Team B, and then the game starts, jump in and we have a draft overlay. This should not suffice. It's important for the coverage, especially now that you're going to have more of the big teams involved in the qualifiers. So majors and minors, obviously you'll have more opportunity in the minors for teams to get into these and have less of the major teams kicking them out. Because obviously once you qualify for a major, you don't play in the minor, right? Or actually once you, yeah, anyway. So it's really important that a lot of these teams, when they have that opportunity to play in the qualifiers for the minor and the major, they get exposure, they're able to gain fans, and you're able to relate to their storyline. This is a critical thing, and I'm hoping that organizers step up and do that. Other things, though, which will now, like, I talk about Valve video policy, I talk about people like BSJ and Bulldog and Sing Sing and even myself sometimes, who stream out this stuff on our own personal Twitch streams, and we pump this stuff out. And we're, in a lot of ways, definitely, we are competing with the main primary coverage. Now, this may start to happen more. And I'm saying this because I think a lot of the infrastructure which started to build up where the Tier 2 casters were getting a lot more opportunities in this 2017-2018 season is going to start to strip away. Like, you're cutting so many events out. So, like, we go from 13 majors, 9 minors, to 5. That's a huge cut of events. And this actually means that people like myself, if I don't get invited for the minors and the majors, I could actually not be casting on a major or minor broadcast for 2 to 3 months. Like, I wasn't hired for Epicenter. They decided to go with a lot of lower cost casters, so fair enough there. But that now means, like, if Epicenter is a major, and then they just want to have, like, more tier 2 casters casting the minor as well, then, okay, well, I skip one major, and potentially you guys don't see me for 4 months casting. So my only other option is to go and do the third-party casting on my own Twitch stream, just watching off Dota TV. So this, I kind of feel, is going to start to pop up a little bit more. And the other swing of it is, what if now organizers only hire the tier 1 casters? There's less opportunities because tier 1 casters won't be as burnt out, so it will be a lot more agreeable to actually work all of the minors and the majors, because everything is spaced out. Just like the teams, they won't be tired. The talent will also not be tired or just massively overworked. So where is the opportunity now for the tier 2 and the tier 3 casters to actually do these major events? Grant, who actually started working a lot more events, will the opportunities still be there? And will the opportunities be there enough that they can actually do this as a day job? That's always the big thing, because how do you keep up with people who do this as their day job? If you still have to worry about, oh, I have to rock up, I have to do 40 hours work a week, and I can only go and do an event when I can book holiday time. This is a real thing. I lived in exactly the same kind of world. So I'm concerned for tier 2 and tier 3 talent being able to remain in the casting scene, and still actually having opportunities in the casting scene, because my challenge to actually up the production quality for the qualifiers could actually push to this, where you actually have tier 1 or tier 2 talent actually booked to do these qualifiers, where the tier 3 talent, that was their stomping ground throughout this DPC season. So you may lose a lot of your personalities from the scene. You already started to lose a couple in the form of Merlini as well as LD, and this could happen again depending on how the cards fall coming up into the new DPC, who these third-party organizers hire. And if I go off what I believe is going to happen, I don't believe Valve will step in and try and dictate what talent should be hired for what event. I don't believe this will end up happening. It was too much of a nightmare for them doing it during the majors anyway. They already tried to farm that out. So I'm concerned for talent actually remaining, like brands remaining in the scene. And this could also then just be pushed over towards minors and majors, which brands actually get the minors and majors. Now this will be very heavily contested. Who deserves to get this minor and major? If you want your drama, that's probably going to be the place you look at. Who can run this, and especially during the window of opportunity. Now, Hamburg has already been announced. Now, it's not in one of the windows. It's actually in competition to one of the windows. So how does Valve now do this? And how does all tournament organizers do this? When you book venues, you can't always just say, like Valve was given, let's just say, so they wanted a major event between January 17th and January 27th. You've got a 10-day window. Now, I want to run this event, say, in Australia, but I can't get a venue within those 10 days. I have to apply for a different one. But I'm wanting to apply for multiples anyway, because I don't know what one I'm going to be accepted for. So what I then have to just try and scrounge together some lower level venue, which was available during that time window. And this is that thing where I think organizers' flexibility and creativity is going to be heavily, heavily hurt. Just because the windows are so tightly locked, at least they have advanced warning. This is a good thing. They have advanced warning and they're taking applications. And I already heard a rumor too that applications were already being put in a couple of months before this was made public. And that would also go along the same lines as what Valve has done in the past. If they're making big changes to DPC, they let tournament organizers know some of the details before everything comes out, so they can start to prepare and be ready for any kind of changes which are on the way. So I think third parties are going to have an interesting time juggling their stuff in, and I'm also interested to see what third parties do when they're not a minor or a major. So Hamburg, if it's not a minor or a major, do they still get a lot of the top teams attending? Does this actually become attractive for a lot of the teams who do not qualify for a minor and a major to actually be part of these tournaments? And do organizers and sponsors who need to pay for all this shit, like, do they feel a desire to actually be involved in something that is not a minor or a major? things like minus mode, for example, I think are the perfect window, like quirky, different styles of competition which don't follow the norm, but teams are still interested to compete in, and the community is interested to consume. These are the things I think which will be able to really make the most out of the windows which Valve have already set. So there are windows between the qualifiers and between the majors and the minors. These are opportunities for a lot of third parties to do something creative that stands out, that isn't going to be the standard Dota that you see in the minors and the majors. So it's going to be a very interesting world. I think as far as consumable content for the community, this is so much better now, because you can actually follow the storylines. It's not an overload. Who knows? Maybe even Valve do a proper system where the compendium or the battle passes that run throughout the year actually run with these minors and majors. They actually have in-game... Small little thing, I'm not going to rant about it. I've already made this video way too long anyway, but the ability for in-game users, like a random Joe Blow who wants to play Dota, to understand that a competitive scene actually exists and how they can follow it, knowing that the game is live without having to click on the watch tab for Dota TV and just saying, oh look, there is a tournament game live. Actually understanding what that game means. This is what the compendiums did so well in the past. And when they were available to third parties, it was so good. It'd be great now if these compendiums can actually be given to the third parties who have minors and majors, so they can put inside the game as well what they did so well in the past. Now, I understand why this may not happen, because Valve like to save a lot of really cool things for the International. So the International is set above the rest. So maybe it won't happen. It would be nice if it does happen though, because that way the competitive scene can get a lot more of a kick from the player base of Dota, which is still surviving, which is still very hardcore. Even though we have lost so many players over the course of the last year and a half, and it's not a lot, it's not like a small number, like it's 500,000 people roughly have left Dota 2 as an average player base. That's concerning in itself. We need to make the most of the people who are still left behind. Give them something interesting, give them something consistent throughout the year, and this is a step in the right direction with the DPC. But as I've said previously with other things that Valve have done, the devil is always in the details. Valve need to get this right, and I hope they do, and I hope you guys also listen to a lot of other opinions. Of course, mine, I have had 2 hours to digest this and think about this. I had a shower, and hey, that's like my diabolic, that's my time chamber. I can just sit there and go, yeah, okay, I got this. But even my thoughts will definitely change over time. I'm sure Nahaz is going to change them when I go over to the venue in 2 hours' time. Actually, I'm heading over. So, yeah, digest it, think about it. Hopefully, I've given you a lot of points to think about as well. That's the whole point of these videos. And hey, I did a video. Technically, I did one as well, like a couple of days ago. So if you want to go check that one out, go and do that. And yeah, we'll do more of this stuff. Sorry again, I'm looking to get a new phone, so the video quality as well as the autofocus doesn't keep changing around. I made the best of it, and I think also the light changing behind me has also probably made this video a little bit more interesting, and the audio. And there's the black and white. I had to say it, and then it did the whole change. So thanks for watching, everyone. I'll try and get better gear as well. I'm looking for a new phone to actually do this stuff so I can consistently do videos like this. And yeah, that's Toby Talks number 8. Catch you next time.